Hello everybody, it's your average cult survivor back with another video. I do have some gameplay here in the background. It's Rocket League. It's one of my favorite games, in fact. It's been one of my comfort games, as me being a avid gamer. This is one of the games that I tend to go back to and play, late nights, just to chill, just to vibe, but, I digress. I want to make a part 2 video. This is a part 2 video of, from the first one where I delve into what it is exactly to be a kid in the WMSCOG, to be a kid in the WMSCOG. So we already know, as from my last recording, from my last episode, being a kid in the WMSCOG, it's very structured. I mean, if you're a member, period. If you're a member in this cult, you can recognize that there's a lot of structure, and kids are no exception. So because there's a lot of structure, it's basically we're doing the same things, almost the same things as the adults, but we fall under the same requirements as the adults. And I want to just delve into a little bit more about what the kids were required to do, and then going a little bit more into what it was like being a teenager in Zion, being a teenager in this cult, being in high school, and some of the difficulties it was like just being a kid, like just being a teenager in this church. It wasn't the easiest thing. It wasn't the easiest thing. There was a lot of things that had to be given up. And then, later on in future episodes, I want to go into how it was being a member, being in the military, how it was, being a father in the church, what the experience is, in these different types of positions. I myself, I've been a kid in the church. I've been a group leader, over 25 plus members. I've been in I don't know if I mentioned it. I've been in the military. I've been a military member in the church. Different things, So I have a lot of different perspectives. There's a lot of different things that I want to bring up, and that I will bring up in future episodes. But yeah, let's just take this little by little, episode by episode. So just when it comes to the structure, like I mentioned before, the structure while being in the Church of God, the Roman Society Church of God, is very strict. And that's from top to bottom, to both members and kid members alike. You look at some of the things that were required of the members to do, such as fasting. We already know that there are various court cases out there that, the church tries to say that they don't require members to fast, especially the kids, So like I said, I've been a kid in this group, and I've had a kid while being in this group. And I can definitely say 100% without a doubt, I'm not crazy. I'm not, going cuckoo for Cocoa Puffs. From my, regarding my memories, I do remember being asked as a kid, or being told rather, that it was a requirement to fast. Now, it was a requirement to fast mainly on the Feast of Unleavened Bread. So let me tell you how, as a kid, how these feasts usually went. Before the Feast of Unleavened Bread, as you all know, the first festival that the church will keep is the Passover. Now, during the Passover, I still vaguely remember my first Passover that I ever kept. Sitting in the kids' room, where it was like a huge deal, I don't know if any of you were ever kids in the group, but my grandmother, she would like I don't know if you guys can relate, but she would buy us like we would get a new suit. We would get a new suit every Passover. We would get like, brand new clothes. It was really like, as a kid, it was, it was pretty cool. We got a brand new suit. Maybe every few years we got a new Bible or whatnot. Yeah, that's how it was. But moving forward to the actual feast date, it was as a kid, what you're thinking of is the amount of cleaning that you're gonna have to do, and the amount of cleaning we did as a church. Cleaning up the whole temple and everything, the sanctuary, the whole, the everything. It had to be spotless. That's definitely one thing that I remember as a kid. Everybody pitching in to clean, and this was a consistent theme all throughout. Every time a new feast was coming, like the Passover, unleavened bread, resurrection, and after that, you had the second set of the feast, which was, I believe, like the Feast of Weeks, Pentecost and whatnot. And then you had the third set of feasts, Feast of Trumpets, Day of Atonement, Tabernacles, where, again, it was, all right, everything must be cleaned. Even like my grandma, who's a deaconess, like we're at home, we're like cleaning the walls, we're like deep cleaning. At the time, like we had a pretty nicely sized like townhome in LA, and like super close to the church. And since we had a lot of members staying at our house during the feast, being a kid, like we always had some adult members, so even sometimes like with their kids staying at our house. It was a 3-story townhome. We had the first level was the living room, then we had the den and the kitchen. Those were the spaces usually reserved for some of the members that would stay over our homes, stay over our house during the feast. And me, like looking back at it, I think that was kind of weird, honestly. we literally had people who would be coming from the afar branches, that were traveling quite a distance in order to keep the feast, and they would mainly be staying at our house. And it was what it was. Like at the time, I said it is what it is, and it wasn't really a big deal because we were mainly upstairs, in our own rooms and whatnot. But yeah, it was a big thing to have other members stay at your home, especially during the feast. I don't know if the churches ever try to combat that statement, but yeah, it was a big thing in this cult. It's a big thing, a common thing for members to stay at one another's house, whether it is, moving in with each other, staying at each other's homes during the feast. It is, that's what it was. That's what it was. And because of that, I grew up around a lot of adults. And since the turnover rate was so high, there were just so many people I was meeting. Even as a kid, I wasn't too shy. But that's, that was the vibe during the feast. Early morning, evening worships every single day for like 10 days straight. And then we have these people staying over our house. So that was like the kind of environment that I grew up in personally. I know not every one of us has the same exact experience, but that's kind of like what I went through during the feast. But what I did want to get into, or just quickly mention, there are some court cases out there that the church trying to defend, that they've never taught or forced anyone to fast. So, I'm here to say, yes, they did tell us that it is a requirement to fast. I'm not saying that they forced us to fast. They didn't hold the gun to our head to tell us to fast. Rather, they used pretty snarky manipulation tactics to push that requirement of fasting. Of course, on the day of unleavened bread, the Feast of Unleavened Bread, whatever it's called, that was a day that all of us, all you members who were, former members, or even if you current members are listening, it is a requirement to fast on this day. Literally, the church would tape up, like duct tape, literally duct tape, and cover up all water fountains, all the vending machines, water dispensers, coffee dispensers, everything that you can get a drink or food from. It was covered up. It was taped up. No one could use it while being in Zion, because it was a requirement for everybody to fast. And it's baffling to me that this is something that they have lied about in court. They swore to tell the truth in court. You swear to tell the truth. You put your hand on the Bible to swear to tell the truth, and they straight up lie. It was a requirement for everybody, absolutely everybody, down to the babies, to fast. And like I said, I have many different perspectives. I was a father in this church. I was a kid in this church. I was a group leader in this church. I know firsthand that it is 100% a requirement for every single member to fast. And the way they guilt trip you, they say, oh, according to your faith. Everybody knows this one. According to your faith, at the end of the day, it's according to your faith. Now, what does that mean to members of the church? What is that phrase mean to someone a part of the church? Of course, if you're a member, if you're a former member, if you're a current member, you know exactly what this means. It means if you do not fast, you do not have good faith. And if you're in this cult, you for sure don't want to be looked at as someone who does not have good faith, because then you won't be selected for certain quote unquote blessings. You won't be, used for the gospel. That was a big thing, right? You want to be used for the gospel. But as a kid, specifically, what choice do you have? What choice do you have? It was your parents' choice, honestly. If your parents had strong faith, you were fasting. No questions asked. My grandmother, she's a deaconess. She's still there. Was it a requirement for us to fast? Yes. Was it a requirement for us to go every Saturday, attend every single feast, go every third day? Yes. It was our lifestyle. We had no choice. But we grew up in it. It was all we knew. So, it's like very dangerous. It's very dangerous. And if any of you have had children in this, I even had my son for his first few years while he was alive. I was bringing him to this church, unfortunately, for about the first couple years of his life. And that was when I started getting really uncomfortable about the idea of fasting. The kids needing to fast. And my son, he would be crying. And I knew this, my little guy was starving, so we did sneak, we ended up sneaking this boy some food. We didn't want to take that route really, but I can speak for myself as from when I was a kid, there was no questions asked. It was, you're fasting, in order to display your faith. And I feel Unfortunately, I feel that some parents just really force their kids to fast because they don't want to look like they have small faith. A parent doesn't want to look like they have little faith, so they will, force their kids to fast, unfortunately. And, I saw other kids, they would have conflict with their parents about this, and it wasn't always an easy thing for everybody to follow, and which is why they had to basically bar up everything, the vending machines, the coffee machines, the water dispensers, everything. I'm telling you, everything was barred off. And during, in between services, usually, at least in our branch, we would always watch the Passion of the Christ. We would watch a couple more church videos just to, pass the time, I guess. But that's what it was. That's literally what it was, and yeah, they say they say they never require it, but I have firsthand experience in from a few different perspectives, and seeing that it, unfortunately they've lied under oath, they've lied in court. Yeah, I mean, other than that, there was always many restrictions, but I quickly just wanted to get that out there. Yes, it was a requirement as a kid to fast, and along with many other requirements. I did want to get into briefly about how it was being a teenager in the cult, and then I'll probably end the video there. But just getting into what it was like being a teenager in the cult, I would say it was one of the most difficult things. Not so much, of course, through the elementary school phase, middle school phase, but once it came to later middle school, high school, that's when it was you had to decide whether if you wanted to become a dedicated member or if you were just going to just go with the flow. And around this time, when I was becoming a teenager and being middle school, high school, what I remember the most is that it was taught that those prophets, what really scared me into wanting to start preaching when I was 15 years old, it was the teaching of everything, all the prophecies about the separation of God's people and the Gentiles. Most of those prophecies, this is what I was told, most of those prophecies they can refer to, the world versus the people in Zion. However, what was taught to me was that, but as well as a deeper meaning. So whenever it comes to a teaching of the church, there was always a deeper meaning. And the deeper meaning that I was taught when it came to these prophecies, when, the Gentiles versus the people in Zion, it was, oh no, this is really talking about all the people in Zion. However, those in Zion, there's two different types of people in Zion. There are the law keepers, and then there's the regular common folk. And there was this one prophecy about, the seal of God that, it would explain about those who had the seal on their forehead, and the angels would go and kill those who did not have the seal on the forehead. And I repeatedly, as a teenager, remember hearing about how this was about, this is about those who are in Zion. This is about those who are in Zion. This is about those who know the truth. Yeah, the angel of death would be checking those in Zion. Who has the seal of God and who doesn't? So of course it was the matter of, if you're in Zion, are you a true law keeper, or are you just a common folk? Are you someone who doesn't have their wedding clothes on, basically? And that really scared me, along with the whole 2012 prophecy. And yeah, I started preaching. So my teenager phase, going from like 14 to 15, was like a huge transition for me. Before, I was, you know, too young to preach, really. And I was doing my extracurricular activities in high school. I was playing football. Um, I was getting my schoolwork done. But when that 2012 year approached, and I was learning about all these different prophecies, about what's right and what's, ultimately learning what's right and what's wrong. And yeah, it changed my whole mindset. Really changed my whole mindset. But yeah, I mean, just being a teenager, you have all these hormones going on. So I had issues with like I had issues with like talking to sisters as well, because like, I knew some of these sisters since I was 6 years old. And there came a point where it was like, no, you can't even talk to them, because they're fearing, the church. The cult is fearing that these teenagers are trying to get together and whatnot. It was really ridiculous at the time. They didn't want us to use social media. I've had pastor talk to me about Facebook, MySpace. I've witnessed pastor talking to even older members about MySpace. It was a crazy time. It was a pretty crazy time. And it's funny now looking back at that, nowadays they don't really seem to have a problem with members on social media. But especially as a teenager, when social media was really coming, social media was really a newborn at the time. It was a new thing, So nobody really knew how to act with social media. It was an interesting time. I remember being told that Satan is ruling Twitter. The Pope is on Twitter, so we shouldn't have Twitter and whatnot. But now you have Azaz and all these We Love You and these upper echelon members. They have Twitter and all these social media platforms. But yeah, these were the types of things we were told as teenagers. No dating, no video games, the things that teenagers like to do, going out, watching movies, hanging out. It was literally illegal in the eyes of God. If you were in this cult, it was illegal in the eyes of God to hang out outside of church. Unless you had approval of the pastor or the missionary or whoever, you could not hang out outside of church, outside of Zion. Because what are you going to do outside of Zion? There's nothing good to do outside of Zion. So I mean that's what the vibe was. That's what the vibe was like, being, a teenager in Zion. Really, it was really difficult. It was around this time I would still have a lot of nightmares. There'd be a lot of scares. I mean, I wasn't even doing good in school, skipping a lot of homework. I was missing a lot of classes just because I thought the world was going to end very soon. We all say 2012 was they taught that 2012 was the year, but in reality, even before 2012, they would always say, oh, this, Father could come today, Father can come tomorrow, Father can come anytime. They would always say, we hear his footsteps. But it ultimately came to nothing, and that's a sad thing. I'm glad that I was able to come out as young as I was. However, I don't know if any of you listening right now were teenagers in this church as well. We're kids and, unfortunately wasted a lot of years in this cult. But, you feel like there's opportunities that you miss. I didn't play football my senior year of high school. I didn't do a lot of things. I didn't go to prom. I graduated high school, but I didn't graduate on stage. I just missed out on a lot of things. And I don't know if maybe some of you can relate to me or not, but it's good getting these types of thoughts out and just sharing. In the very near future, though, I would love to, bring some of you guys on. If anybody is willing to come on with me, we can have a quick roundtable discussion. Not just one, but maybe even like a few of us. Have like a little session where we're just having just like a little roundtable discussion about how it was, being a member, like just going down into the nitty gritty and how it was, how the day to day was really about, from being a member in the church, in this cult. But these are just some really quick thoughts on how it was being a teenager and a kid. It was a requirement. I just want to reiterate, it was a requirement for us to fast. It was, very, I think it's very inappropriate, if to even ask children or, toddlers and even babies to fast according to your faith. That's all I remember hearing. But yeah, no, these are some quick thoughts that I just wanted to get out there. And if you guys have any other questions, comments, concerns, feel free to share in the comments down below. I appreciate the support. I will continue putting out these videos when I can, when my schedule allows, but I do have a lot lined up for the future. Also, I'm going to include the Discord link down below again if anybody wants to join. I want to start doing maybe some watch parties. I know there's a new documentary on Netflix coming out regarding some of these Korean cults. I would possibly like to do a watch party when that thing comes out in a few days. But we'll see. We'll bob and weave. We'll see how everything goes. But yeah, it's been your average cult survivor. It's Jordan Young here, and hopefully I didn't just blabber on too long. But like I said, these are just some quick thoughts. This is therapy for me, and hopefully you guys enjoy. Like, comment, subscribe, and see you on the next one. Peace.